What is going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Wager Alarm live stream. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me here, of course, Craig Mish. Craig, fresh off the MLB GM meetings. That's why we weren't around on Tuesday night. I don't think anybody was too upset that we didn't get to do our recap of some fun stuff. We really weren't looking at too many lines moving around anyway for the NFL. So before we dive into this, how are you feeling about the GM meetings?
It was fun. I really think that for the most part, when you look at the meetings, it's things happen that you don't expect. But for the most part, three of the major players that were free agents ended up signing. And Howard, I've been waiting for that for 3 years. I went out to Orlando 2 years ago. Nothing happened. I went to Las Vegas last year. Nothing happened. This year I go to San Diego. Steven Strasburg signs. Garrett Cole signs. Anthony Rendon signs. It really turned out to be a lot of fun. So the main three guys signed. Of course, there were a lot of other things that happened too. And as we get closer to the baseball season, we'll talk about those as well. I know Fantasy Alarm has the baseball guide coming out soon to address all of that.
Absolutely. We'll definitely be talking about that. Not to mention the fact that I'm very much looking forward to you and I sitting and talking about some over-unders for MLB wins totals. I know that we've done that before in the past, and very much looking forward to getting into that. I'm already
and that's one of my big things every single year. In fact, I went on the Vegas Stats and Information Network this past week, and they were asked, and like a lot of people ask me about those. That tends to be one of the things that I have good success with, and I don't do a lot of them. I think that's the big mistake as a bettor. And even when we did these for both college and pro football, you got to really limit the amount of totals that you do. It's just like making bets. Now, with those, with season win totals, both in the NFL and in college and in baseball, I am a proponent of betting more on those than you would, of course, on an individual game, because essentially you have that bet, Howard, for 6 months. Right. So what you would do is kind of like prorate it over the course of what you would do for one game and really multiply it times 6. But the biggest misnomer is because there's so many and, you know, the payoff is so far down the line that you can have more success if you know about the teams. But the one similarity that there is in this, as opposed to betting on individual games, is how in the world are you supposed to know that Andrew Luck is going to retire? You know, like just some things happen in all sports that you just can't quantify. How are you supposed to know that a couple years ago Starling Marte is going to get popped for a steroid suspension? So, you know, that's why I tend to just try and focus on one or two at the beginning of the season. But of course, for these live streams, we did a lot more. And if you go back and you watch our season win total live stream, both in college and pro football, we did extremely well in a lot of them. I don't know if we've graded those yet, but it's funny. No. I know the losses that I've had already, and I always remember those, but I don't remember the
wins. We have not graded those out yet. I'm sure we'll be able to once we kind of get through the next week. We're going to be doing our bowl game special. We're also going to be doing it'll be week 17 or week 16 at that point. For the Super Contest and the Golden Nuggets. So we'll definitely have some time to dive in, grade some of our wins totals. I just remember last year, your big one, your lock of the season was Toronto.
That was.
And you hit with that one, and that one felt good. And
that's why the people at VSiN are asking me, all the listeners are asking me what the one is going to be this year. 2 years ago was the Texas Rangers. So, PointsBet, which is in New Jersey, actually, believe it or not, posted them now. They're up now on PointsBet, but you got to be out of your mind to bet on these now. Like, really? Like, I guess you could. It's like the same concept, I guess, Howard, of drafting fantasy sports early, where you could kind of try to get ahead of something. But I don't know. For me, not knowing injuries, not knowing where players are going to sign. I didn't have a clue Anthony Rendon was going to end up with the Angels. Like, I'm going to wait till March on those for sure, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's, I've done drafting. I drafted a fantasy football team in January. And I looked at my first 3 picks, and I was like, well, had I known then that the entire offensive line of this team would go down with injury, I never would have done that. So, listen, I get it. You and I actually had a behind-the-scenes conversation about your big lean this year, which I definitely like, and I'm not. I'm not going to mention it.
Yeah, I talked about it on the radio. I talked about it on the radio on VSiN. They asked me already in advance of that, and the number was surprisingly low. I think they caught up to it, but we got to see what the number will be, in Vegas. But, a little low for me.
Okay. I gotcha. Noted.
And the other thing with baseball too, by the way, is it's not so much is it about the teams. It is the teams in the division too, Howard. That's a big factor in this. If you have 3 or 4 teams that are competing, you're looking good for an under. If you have 3 or 4 teams that are not competing, like the American League Central, sometimes you go on the over. So yeah, we'll dive all into it as we get closer.
Sure. Let's stick to some football right now. We've got our picks are already locked in for the Golden Nugget.
Good week last week again, over 500 again.
Good week last week. Yeah, we finished over 500. We were 4-3 in the Nugget, right, and 3-2 in the Super Contest.
Yep.
So maintaining our percentage. I think we're at I want to say we're probably right around like 53-54% for both contests right there. Yep. This is actually, we're just starting off now the mini contest for the Westgate Super Contest. Anybody who's in there, it's the final 3 weeks of the season. Whoever has the best record at that point. And you and I were right there on the cusp of catching the money in the mini contest, as well as catching it in the Super Contest.
We were, and we had a little rut. Look, this has been a long season. I think this is week 15 of the Golden Nugget. We've only had a couple of really bad weeks. That's going to happen. You can't. We've had a couple of 7-0 weeks too. So. This week, as you mentioned, it is a little different. For the first week of the Golden Nugget football contest, we have one college football game, and that's it. So they are telling us to pick 6 games against the spread in the NFL. Good luck to us.
Not easy. It's definitely not easy.
Not easy.
I'm going to tell you, though, I dig our picks. So we'll dive right in. We are going Army-Navy game. We've been riding with Navy the entire season. We've used them a number of times. They have not there was 1 week where they let us down. One small week where they didn't cover the spread. The rest of the time, Navy has been very good to us. Army has been terrible. They've not been strong. We know that this is a game where there's going to be a lot of running on the ground, very little passing. The spread is 10.5, which is a little on the high side for me for a game where you've got 2 rushing offenses, but I just don't know how to go against Navy here. Did I freeze or did Craig freeze? It would appear that my man Craig has frozen. So, all right. Well, there you go. So, Navy minus 10.5. That's the first one we're going. Little technical difficulties. Are we going to get Craig back in here? My producer, Matt Sells. Oh, I just saw a move. There he is.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Bad internet there. Sorry about that.
Terrible.
We're fixed.
So what was the last thing you heard, Craig?
What did I hear?
You heard that we're taking Army plus 10.5.
We're taking Navy. We're taking Navy.
Just making sure. You have a little thought process. One of the things that I said that made me a little nervous about this spread was simply because you got 2 rushing offenses.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is that the military academies all run the option, and so they tend to know each other a little bit. The last 6 times these 2 teams have played, it's gone under the total, so we don't have a choice of that. But either way, look, Army has not had a good season. They're a few games under 500. They're not playing in a bowl. The only thing that worries me a little bit is this is kind of their bowl game, where Navy does have a bowl game, as we'll talk about in our bowl preview in a couple of weeks. But I think Navy is the right side, and historically, Navy has been the right side, although Army has won 3 straight games in this series, including last year. But the games are usually close. This year, I don't think it will be. I think Navy is going to roll in this one. By the way, I got a shout out here, if you don't mind, real quick. Howard, is that okay with you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, our buddy Dan Straley, who is just announced that he's going to be pitching in the KBO this year, asked me to give a shout out. So he's watching our live stream tonight here. He thinks it's cool. So.
All right. Well, what's up, Dan Straley? Good luck in the KBO.
There you go.
Hitter friendly. Oh. Coming after you. All right.
There you go.
I dig it. All right.
I wish I was watching him in the big leagues this year, but I understand.
I do too.
Gotta take care of your family, man, you know?
Yes, you do. Right, you are. I've had Straley on some fantasy teams.
And so have I. And so have I. And I've had good success.
Yeah, so there you go. Now what are we going to do? KBO Fantasy?
We have to do KBO Fantasy this year. He'll give us a good scouting report.
All right.
He'll give us some sleepers.
Well, there you go. That's what I need. Top 10 KBO sleepers. Definitely. Top 10 pitchers, top 10 hitters.
There you go.
All right. Back to football here.
Yes.
Army-Navy game. We're taking Navy. We're laying the points. Let's go to the NFL games because this one is kind of interesting. We're using some picks in both, but there are a couple of lines, couple of half points that are off on certain ones. So stick here with the Golden Nugget. The first one, Cincinnati Bengals. We're going back to the Bengals with the backdoor cover here. Even against the Patriots, 9.5 points. Patriots offense does not look good at all. Their defense is great. That's fine. But the offense is just not producing.
The Bengals are the backdoor kings of 2019. 3 backdoor covers this year? I mean, usually you get 1 from a team in the NFL. At the most, you'll get 2. They've got 3 backdoor covers. Howard, look, I think we kind of go through this every year with New England. And then every year that this happens, from a betting perspective, you look at it and go, wow, it may be time to fade the Patriots, right? And then they always start sticking it to you once you start doing that. Do you feel like this is a different year for them? Because they go through this 2 or 3 game streak, and it usually happens around November into December, and then all of a sudden they get right, and then they make you pay. Do you think that that's going to happen again this year? I'm wondering. I feel like no, but I don't want to hurt myself like I do every year, because every year they just automatically turn it around. But I feel like their offense is never going to be like it was a few years ago. I feel like they're going to have to win on defense.
They're going to have to win it on defense, yeah, because they're really I think the big problem is, and what we're all going to end up seeing is Tom Brady's either elbow surgery or shoulder surgery. Something's going down with his arm. He doesn't have the arm strength. He can't heave it down the field. He'll do it once or twice in a game, but for the most part, his bread and butter are the short timing routes with Edelman or the dump offs to James White. So that's really kind of where he's living right now, which is another reason why, they grab a guy like Mohamed Sanu, who's built in that same framework as Julian Edelman, as just a possession receiver to move the chains.
Right.
Belichick's making that adjustment to it, but I just don't think that you can. I think it's too predictable for other defenses now.
From a betting perspective, it's Belichick and Andy Reid coming off bye weeks. And it's Belichick coming off really bad performances by his team. But I got to tell you, we're on like 3 weeks of this. So I fully expect that we'll get to that point where we'll have to make a decision in the postseason, in the playoffs, which way we're going to go with them against the spread. But for now, I think the right call is until they get right to start, going against them a little bit. And if you thought that this trend was going to stop, it is not. In all the years I've been doing this, at least from a professional point of view with you and doing this, otherwise, I don't ever recall this kind of percentage of road teams covering the spread. It's just incredible to me. And we have to continue with this trend of the road dogs. So this trend. So it's a big road dog. We're going to do it again this week. We'll take the Bengals.
Home dog, you mean?
Road dogs.
Home dog.
This is a home dog, but road dogs too.
Yeah, okay. I just thought you were still talking about the Bengals.
Underdogs are covering. Underdogs are above 500.
Dogs are, that's the whole thing. I mean, that's the first thing I look at when I look at the line is I look at what the home dogs are,
And
what?
That's why you've become a smarter better at this, because the public is looking at the Packers and the Cowboys and Alabama and just taking the favorites every day. Oh, I know they could win by this, and it just never happens. It just doesn't. It is always better to ride with the dogs. It just is.
Well, for our second game in the NFL, we're actually going to go with a favorite here, though. We're going to go with Seattle taking down the Carolina Panthers. Seattle's laying 6. To me, this is it's a no-brainer. Chris Carson, I see running all over Carolina. They've given up somewhere in the neighborhood of like 180 rushing yards per game over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks even. It's the perfect time for Russell Wilson to allow his ground game to open up his passing game. And I think that I believe, and you know what? You'll win a GPP on DraftKings, getting that Seattle stack in there. Russell Wilson, Chris Carson, throw a little Tyler Lockett, who's everybody's down on because he hasn't done anything in the last couple of weeks. I think they roll over the Panthers, who have just basically quit on the season since Ron Rivera was fired.
Yeah, and look, I think, Howard, right now as it stands, there's only 2 teams in the NFL, and you hate to say quit, but 2 teams that look like they're not showing up. I guess that's the best way to put it. Carolina is one of them. This team is way too talented to get blown out like they are. And the other team's Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville has just laid down. I mean, again, I don't think that the Jaguars are a good team, but with the talent that they have on offense with some of those receivers, and remember, they played very well in the first half with Minshew.
Mm-hmm.
After last week, what happened, and the week before, and, maybe it's the coach, I don't know, whatever it is, but those are two teams right now that I just can't side with. I can't side with Jacksonville, and I can't side with Carolina.
It's a good point that you bring up about the coach, because Doug Marrone was just like this when he was in Buffalo, too. As soon as he saw that his team wasn't making the playoffs, I mean, there was just the general feel about the team, just always kind of closed down early.
They're playing terrible, and the other part of this is that all we're doing, Howard, is we're playing against the spread here.
Sure.
So we don't care if Jacksonville loses every game the rest of the season. We're looking for an edge. How can you possibly take a team that is giving up 40, 50-yard touchdowns when they're already down 31-10? Like, that just shows you that. And look, you got to stop somebody. Rivers hadn't shown that all season long, and he is just throwing bombs up to Mike Williams constantly at the end of that game. They were getting taken advantage. You would think that would mean, we're definitely going to take the Raiders this week. Well, we're not going to do that. Raiders are laying a lot of points, and there are a lot of people that have a strong conviction with the Raiders. We'll talk about that in a second. A lot of people do like the Raiders this week, but that's not one of our picks.
It's not one of our picks, indeed. We're on Seattle -6 over Carolina. We're good with that. The next one that we're taking we're going to go with the Dolphins, 3.5 points underneath the Giants at home. And listen, I mean, this just it makes sense. I'm pretty sure Devontae Parker is going to end up getting cleared from concussion protocol. Alan Hearns is already back and healthy. They've got their team relatively put together. The Giants looked great for that first half against the Eagles on Monday night. They looked absolutely fantastic.
They did. It was a great pick. Yep.
They completely shut down in the second half, and that's where Ryan Fitzpatrick, he'll go down in this game. A touchdown or two, no problem, nice and quick, but he'll lead the team back. He'll just chuck it all day long. So, having that half point actually is really what I like the most about it. I could see it being a close game, and I'll take that extra hook.
Yeah, the Giants right now are one of those teams that probably just want to get through the game. Just run it with Barkley as much as you can. The whole narrative that Eli is going to go out a winner, that was gone too after the other night. Although and again, how deflating is it got to be for the Giants going into this game after the performance they had last week? Let's also not forget the Dolphins last week. Where did they play? They played at the Jets. So from a routine standpoint, we always worry about those teams going on the road and being out of routine. Well, they're doing the same exact thing 2 weeks in a row. They're going to play in the same exact stadium. We haven't taken Miami at all this year, and for good reason, because they haven't played well, but they have covered some spreads, and they've been really good in the first half of football games. So I think in this one, it does come down to the end, and certainly if it is a field goal, Miami ends up covering. In fact, there was very questionable call at the end of that game between the Dolphins and Jets last week. Dolphins could have won that game outright. So I also, like you, do not expect Miami to win, but I expect them to stay in the game and keep it close, and so we'll take the 3.5 points with the Dolphins. First time all year taking Miami.
Congratulations!
I think we actually did. We take Miami when they played Pittsburgh on Monday night. Did we do that?
I don't know if it was a Pittsburgh Monday night. It was a game where there was just a ridiculous point spread. It was like 15.5 points.
I think it was the Steelers on Monday night. We took them and they did cover. This is probably the second time.
So, I mean, once they were doling out those huge 3-score spreads, you kind of had to do some of that.
Too many points in the NFL. And the Giants, look, if the Giants leave that game and win by 1 point, they're thrilled, So
right, yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, they have the worst pass defense in the NFL, and they cut Janoris Jenkins this week. I think we got a good shot at this.
I love that. It was like when the Raiders got rid of they traded Garyon Conley. I was like, you're a lousy secondary, and you just got rid of your best guy, even though he wasn't even the best guy.
Yep.
All right, next game we're looking at, we're taking the Bills. Road dogs here going against the Steelers, who have actually been really good to us this year. But Bills +2. Listen, I don't. This isn't. This to me is about defense. This is not even about Josh Allen and offense going up against the Steelers. It's not even about Devlin Hodges. It's about that Bills defense really just keeping this game super tight. You don't have an explosive offense in Pittsburgh that's going to light them up like we did see when the Ravens jumped out to a big lead.
Yeah, and look, I watched that game very closely. I was on the plane, but I did watch that game very closely last week between Buffalo and Baltimore. I think that the Bills played the Ravens as good as any team has played them in the NFL this season. Buffalo made a lot of mistakes. They still had the game close. They came right down to the end. Allen throws a pass to Beasley, does a nice little fake job, gets a penalty call. They have the ball on the 15-yard line with a minute to go. A lot of teams will score a touchdown and win that game. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, played at Arizona. I watched that game as well very closely. They were completely outplayed by the Cardinals. They gave up a special teams touchdown. They went for it on a 4th and 1 and didn't get it. They went on a 4th and goal and didn't get it. Murray had an easy first down. He didn't run for it, and he threw an interception. That's the only concern with me is that I don't know what Murray is at this point. Kyler Murray's kind of gone the other way, but they completely outplayed Pittsburgh, and they did not win the game. And when special teams touchdowns happen in the NFL, I tend to go the other way the following week because Howard, those are freaky type things. That's like a free 6 points, not like a interception for a touchdown or a fumble. Those are different. Players make mistakes, but those special teams touchdowns are so rare in the NFL. You only get like 1 or 2 a week. So I like the Bills. I think the Bills are a better team than the Steelers. Give a lot of credit to the Steelers for the way that they played. But even with the points, a 21-20 game is a potential win. By the way, the total in this game is the lowest of the season in an NFL game this year at 36. Lowest total of any game in the season. I don't think I've seen anything lower.
No, I don't think I have either.
Yeah, and the NFL is not going to make a total below like 36 ever. So this is as low as it'll get. And I by the way, I like the under too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I like the under.
Like a 10-9 game.
I mean, Buffalo just in the red zone, disaster.
17-16.
Just keep kicking field goals, and then the other part of this too is that Pittsburgh's a team that when they score, they like to go for 2, and they're not really that successful at it. So if there's any going for 2s, you would expect they won't get those. So yeah, under and Buffalo.
I like it. All right, next one we're going. We're doing a little road dog here with an 11-point spread. I got to tell you, man, San Francisco at home, solid team, great team, banged up a little bit on defense right now. That shootout with the Saints, I mean, you were talking about one of the highest rated defenses going in there and then just giving up 48 points to the Saints.
Yep.
Big deal. No Richard Sherman there. I like the Falcons going in there and, at least just covering the spread. I don't care if they win it or not, but I think that this game is a lot closer than an 11-point spread.
Yeah, our pick of the week last week was the 49ers. We took them in both pools, the Super Contest and also the Golden Nugget. And in that game, was pretty much not in doubt from the second half on. You always knew that the 49ers would cover. Weren't sure if they were going to win or not. So I feel like we have a pretty good bead on them right now, and I think that this is a bad spot for them. They're coming off some really monster games against Baltimore, really tough teams. I think they'll win the game. I think it'll be closer than people expect. 49ers have sleptwalked through a couple of games. The only thing that moves against us here is they finally look like they found a running back. Mostert's played phenomenal, and we know that the Falcons have had their issues on defense, but Falcons are playing now without Ridley on offense. Julio Jones is always one little nick up from not playing in these kind of games. So I could see San Francisco winning by 4 or 6. I wouldn't expect Atlanta to win outright, although I wouldn't rule it out. But this is just too many points in the NFL to give any team.
Yeah, too big at this point in the time. Absolutely. And then I think our last game for the Golden Nugget, we're taking the home dog again, going with the Chargers, 2.5-point underdogs to the Vikings. Now, interestingly here, just saw a report, Adam Thielen, he's still a game-time decision. He was back at practice, but they're still throwing the shadow onto Casey Hayward onto Stephon Diggs, whether or not Thielen is even in there. It doesn't even sound like there's a lot of promise as far as Thielen's snap count goes. And, I love Minnesota. I definitely love Minnesota. I think the thing that a lot of people are missing out on right now is that the Chargers defense is actually a lot better than people think. Like early on in the season, they were dealing with a lot of injuries on the defensive line, and they were giving up a lot of yards on the ground. Now all of a sudden you go back and you look at what their run defense has done. Their secondary has gotten a little healthier. That's been solid as well. I think this one stays a lot closer. I think Kirk Cousins kind of dings himself up a little bit here character-wise.
Yeah, Cousins against the spread at 1 o'clock Eastern is great. And at 4 o'clock Eastern, it's horrible. The line is moved 1.5. There's a chance that the Chargers will be favored in this game by the time it kicks off. They've played very well over the last couple of weeks. They should have beaten Denver. They had that terrible pass interference call in overtime. They throttled Jacksonville last week. What is the bottom line? We're probably going to lose, taking the Chargers. We know that. They're going to make a mistake at the end of the game. We're going to come back next week and go, how in the world did we ever take the Chargers? But you know what? I guarantee you this. We're going to be in this right until the end.
Right until the end.
We're going to be in it till the end. You know what? I feel like having a pick that we're going to be right until the end. Will the Chargers, how are they going to blow it? I don't know. They'll probably blow it, but we are going to take the points in this one. And again, if you can get any spread in any contest that you're doing, and you're getting a 2.5 point swing, you got to take it. So we'll take the Chargers here. And by the way, the Chargers stats are pretty good for this season, like running and receiving and playing defense. It's just that they make these terrible mistakes at the end of every football game. And, at the end of the game, let's paint the scenario. Here's what's going to happen. There's going to be 2 minutes left in the game, right? Chargers are going to have the ball, right? They'll probably be down 1. Chargers are going to have the ball. And Rivers is going to have to do something to let them win. What's going to happen? He'll throw a pick. They'll miss a field goal. They'll fumble. I mean, probably. But that being said, I do like the Chargers this week. And I think they could beat Minnesota. Bad spot for Minnesota, too.
Yeah, bad spot. Bad spot. You're also talking Dan Bailey versus Josh Lambo. I'll take Lambo over Bailey any day. Dear Lord, please. All right, so there you go. That's our those are our picks for the Golden Nugget. Navy minus 10.5, Bengals plus 9.5, Seahawks minus 6, Dolphins plus 3.5, Bills plus 2, Falcons plus 11, Chargers plus 2.5. We're going with a lot of dogs here. That's our style. That's what we do, and that's what's been working for us. So no sense in deviating from the plan. Now, Westgate Super Contest. Oh, before we do that, let me shout it out to Monkey Knife Fight. What's up, Monkey Knife Fight? If you guys like prop pick games, in-game prop, whatever, picking, wagering, gambling, whatever. How many different ways can I say it? If you like the props, play out Monkey Knife Fight. Go to fantasyalarm.com/monkey. We'll give you a $10 match deposit, your first deposit over at Monkey Knife Fight. It's kind of funny. I have a hard time, on Sundays when I'm sitting there. If baseball, I'm all over Monkey Knife Fight, 100%. Football, I'm sitting here trying to watch, 10 games at the same time, so it gets a little difficult for me. A little hairy. All
right, that's fine. So with the Super Contest, we're more or less going, I think, with 4 of the same 5 picks, so we don't really need to get back into that again, but we are switching out 1, correct?
Yeah, well, let's just make a note of it that the Seahawks for the Super Contest, we're giving 6.5 and not 6.
Okay, so we got Seattle in both. Nugget 6, Super Contest 6.5. Okay, that's 1. We got
Dolphins. Dolphins are the same, plus 3.5.
Bills are the same as our third pick.
Bills, we're getting 2.5 this time, not just 2.
All right, probably won't factor in, but plus 2.5. What else?
Why gotta be so negative, dude?
Well, it's just 2.5. It's not a.
Why gotta be so negative? I'm going to shout it out to Dan Straley for sending positive tweets to my friend Craig Mish here. Get him on the straight and narrow. Make him feel good. Man. Say something nice. Say something good to him in Korean. There you go. All right, yeah. So Bills plus 2.5, Chargers plus 2.5, but then boom, we're going Monday Night Football, baby. And we're taking the Saints. Now, it's kind of funny because if you look at the line in the Golden Nugget, it's the Saints minus 9. In the Westgate, it's the Saints minus 8. I'm happy to take that extra point.
I am too. You know what? Monday Night Football, this is not the spot, I don't think, to take the Colts. I really don't. In that dome on Monday night, Saints need that win to get the number 1 seed in the NFC. They're still fighting for that thing. The Colts, if there was a good offensive team going in there, I probably would change my mind. And look, let's be real. The Saints defense struggled against Carolina. They struggled against San Francisco. I gotta think that this week they bounce back in a big way. And the Colts are not that kind of team with anybody that's dynamic on offense. They do not have any single player that's dynamic. And so for me, I just think that this is a Monday night blowout. We haven't had a lot of them this year, but and it's unfortunate because I kind of was pulling for the Colts for a while, and they're really good against the spread. But as I've said before, Howard, I will not take the Colts ATS without T.Y. Hilton. I won't do it. It's just he's too much of a – and look, but that's nothing against Pascal. He's been good. But Ebron is out. Mack hasn't been the same. Their offensive line hasn't been the same. Their defense is missing some players. And if the Saints are down – and if they're down – to the Saints 21-0 or 17-0, they Bridgewater doesn't have that ability to bring teams back like that. So I think the luck, no pun intended, I think has run out for the Colts. I would not be surprised if they don't win a game the rest of the season. I think that's it for them.
No, I mean, listen, when I do the breakdown of this game, obviously with no T.Y. Hilton, Zach Pascal is their best wide receiver. Paris Campbell is out on IR. They don't have anybody. They really don't. So if you've got Marshawn Lattimore covering Zach Pascal the entire time, then the fact that P.J. Williams or Eli Apple both suck at football is irrelevant because there's really no other receivers to cover. They can pinch a little with the safeties. They can watch out for Jack Doyle. But I mean, yeah, again, there's no Ebron there either. There's not a lot of offense there for the Colts.
Yeah.
And to me, the biggest strength of the Saints defense is their run defense anyway.
I feel like this game is going to look a lot like Thursday night's game with the Ravens and the Jets, except for the Colts will try harder. But I think the Colts will score, a touchdown or two because the Saints will get lax a little bit on defense. But I just don't see a lot of hope. And on Monday Night Football is not the time to ride those road dogs. That's really not the time to do it. Although we did hit last week with the Giants in general. Home teams and home underdogs are going to do very well. So our final pick in the Super Contest will be the Saints -8. Even though 8's not really a magic number, we'll take that extra advantage there.
I definitely will.
All right.
Well, do you want to do any other needless swipes against my Jets before we get out of here?
No.
Sure?
But I did mention something earlier. One more thing I want to say is that there are some people out there, and again, every narrative you can create for betting in a football game is your own. You can create one, or you could just look at stats or look at trends. And I got to say, the temptation is there to believe that the Raiders playing in their final game ever in Oakland, playing against a team that looks like they're done in Jacksonville, would blow out Jacksonville. But I don't know. I just don't feel good enough. I think the Raiders will win. I just don't feel good enough to say that they could blow out anybody at this point. Their offense has really regressed from a few weeks ago. And I think it comes down to that, they had so many of those road trips, Howard. They were playing on the road, then they went to London, and it was just too much for them. So I grew up an Oakland Raiders fan. It was always really, I liked them, and I liked the LA Raiders and rooted for them in their Super Bowls. Then they had some horrible years for about a decade. They were just terrible, mixing and matching all these different coaches. Can't even name them all. So it is kind of sad for me. I know you live in the Bay Area, but it is kind of sad for me to see this being the last game ever there. But I got to tell you, having the NFL in Las Vegas, no one's going to complain about that in a year or two.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Can you imagine going to the sports book, spending the entire day at the sports book, and then 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, heading on over, and you get to watch football games?
Just head over to the stadium and go watch the game.
Are we doing that next year? Can we make this a plan?
I'll make this a plan.
Oh, come on, we got to do it.
I'll definitely. What do you mean? You act like I just said no.
Yeah, I really would like to do. I would like to be at that first game next year. I think it would be cool.
All right, we'll get the date. We'll figure it all out. We'll do our live stream right.
You know how insane that would be? Oh my god!
Do the live stream in the morning, like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. Do a quick live stream. Go down to the sports book, sit there for the whole time, and then have a car take us to the game.
That's a great life right there.
Amen.
So anyway, next week we'll figure out our schedule, but I think that we've determined that I guess we'll do Tuesday night, but Wednesday night will really be a big night for us here on the live stream. For those of you who are dedicated watchers of the live stream, because our annual bowl game preview is going to be Wednesday night. And
every game, baby.
We're going to do it. We may not have a pick on every game. But because we're not idiots. But we will break down every game and give a lean, give some sort of side, tell you what we really like, and I got to tell you, we were awesome last year at the Bowls. If you go back and you watch a live stream from last year, we had some big hits in that thing. Big hits, including Army was such a big one for, like, we just kept talking about the same one. There's a couple already that I'm looking at. I can't wait next week to do it. And I would say we'll have a blast because next Saturday, next Thursday, or was it Friday? Okay, so next Friday there are 3 bowl games, and next Saturday there are 9. There are 9 bowl games on Saturday. It's like a real week of college football. The most I've ever seen in a college football bowl day is 5 bowls, because a lot of times, Howard, the holidays, it's during the week, But the fact that the early bowl games are on a Saturday to start, they're playing 9. It's like a regular Saturday of college football back again. So I can't wait till next weekend. We got a lot to talk about then.
Yes, we do. So there you go. We'll be back on Tuesday. We'll recap this week in football. Wednesday, the bowl game preview. Friday, our usual Friday night ticket. Big thanks to our producer Matt Sells for all the great work. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. Thanks for tuning into the Wager Alarm live stream. Catch you next time.